There we go.
Okay.
Good evening, members, and welcome to the Policy Committee on the 19th of January. Online again, and probably at least for the foreseeable future, we're online. Vicky, over to you. Agenda item 1, apologies for absence and substitute.
Thank you, Chair. We've got apologies from Councillor Welsh and Councillor Handley is substituting. And that's it, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. Members, confirmation of minutes. Looking for hands going up or anything. I've got Councillor Madeley and Councillor Myers have moved and seconded them, I believe. Are we all happy? Looking round for nods. Great. Nods and thumbs. Excellent. Thank you, members. I don't believe we've any public participation at item 3. So then moving on, declarations of interest, item 4. Looking around, seeing if anybody's...
John Chairman.
No.
Chair, can I just do a quick roll call of members, please? Would that be all right before you go into the first item?
Go on then, Vicky, check who's here.
Okay, thanks. So if you just call your name out, you can just let me know you're present, please. Chairman?
I'm here.
Councillor Barrett?
Present.
Councillor Heseltine?
Present, miss.
Councillor Ireton?
Present.
Councillor Liss?
Present.
Councillor Madeley?
Present.
Councillor Metcalfe?
Present.
Councillor Morell?
Present.
Councillor Mulligan?
Present.
Councillor Myers?
Present.
Councillor Noland?
Present.
Councillor Place?
Present.
Councillor Rose?
Present.
And Councillor Wheeler?
Present.
And then we've got Councillor Handley.
Present.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Vicky. Yeah, keep me in order. We're getting better at doing the roll call anyway. Members, moving on to agenda item 5, the council collection fund, council tax surplus brackets deficit. Over to you, Patrick.
Thank you, Chairman. This is an annual report we receive, members, and it is to declare the estimated surplus or deficit on the collection fund council tax for 2020-21. I think with this item and the next item, which are business rates collection, we have anticipated there would be an impact from COVID, and there has been, certainly has been. There are some mitigations in the report. I'm going to let Richard Way talk about the figures in a minute, but you know, we are able to spread the deficit that's identified in the report over 3 years, and we also anticipate the government help over any losses we might have taken. So on that note, I'll just pass over to Richard and he can just give us the actual figures. Thank you, Chairman.
Okay, thank you. Evening, everybody. Yeah, just to go through the numbers. As Councillor Mulligan has said, there has been an impact on collection in the year and the base more generally. I mean, we'll cover this more when we go through the budget setting in a couple of weeks' time. But you might recall when we calculated the tax base, we did see an impact on collection in year, but it wasn't significant. What's had the biggest impact so far has been around the increase in council tax support, and that's reflected in the base that forms part of these figures. But the actual impact on the budget next year isn't as drastic as the in-year deficit figure, and that's because there is always a surplus or deficit on a collection fund, because you can never at the beginning of the year, or even at the start before the beginning of the financial year, you can never forecast exactly what the figures will be. So we had a surplus in the collection fund from last year, so that sort of mitigates the impact, as does the fact that deficits arising in the current year. We've been given provision to take that over 3 years. That was a change in the regulations that's been introduced as a response to the pandemic. So the deficit figures for each of the preceptors are shown, and for Craven it's 15,900. There is, and it was announced as part of the spending review, and is subsequently being refined in more detail, support around some of the in-year losses this year that will be provided by government. So there's still a lot to be done around that, and clearly we'll need the final figures when we get to the end of the year. But certainly on some of the uncollectible debt that's arisen within this financial year, we expect a degree of support around that to be provided. But that isn't factored into these figures. That's just something to be aware of as the year progresses. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. Looking around, hands of members. I mean, to me, it doesn't seem as bad even before we get the government factoring in. I know we're allowed to put this over 3 years. It's potentially what we thought it could have been, which tends to suggest that people are still paying the council tax and haven't pulled that as one of the things that they're not willing to pay. But I'm also guessing we probably, can I assume that we've also done more council tax benefit through this year? Can you answer that, Richard?
Yes, of course, Chair. Yes, that's right. The impact so far in the year on collection has been affected, but it's not drastic. And I think the most recent figures I looked at were somewhere between 1% and 2% down different compared to the equivalent period last year. So collection is holding up. It's the council tax support that's had the greatest impact on the base. And again, that figure's fluctuated throughout the year, but it's kind of landing somewhere between 15 and 20% increase on what the figure that we assumed would be the figure when we set the budget. Probably more likely to be 15, I think, based on the more recent figures, but there's still a couple of months to go, and it does tend to move around somewhere between those two. So that's where the sort of most striking impact has been, and we reflected that when we recalculated the base for the forthcoming financial year. Thank you.
I'm still looking around for hands, but don't see any. So do we need a vote on this, Vicky, or is it do we need just a consent?
No, if we can do a vote, please, that would be great. Thank you.
Can I formally move the recommendations, Chairman?
Oh, I'll second from the chair while I'm on mute.
Okay, so it's proposed and seconded then to accept the recommendations in the report. So if I can just call your name out, and if you could say whether you're for, against, or you're abstaining. Chairman?
For.
Councillor Barrett?
For.
Councillor Heseltine?
For.
Councillor Ireton?
For.
Thank you. Councillor Liss?
For.
Councillor Madeley?
For.
Councillor Metcalfe?
For.
Councillor Morell?
For.
Councillor Mulligan?
For.
Councillor Myers?
For.
Councillor Noland? Councillor Noland, are you with us? You're muted, Councillor Noland.
Yeah, I pressed the space bar, it didn't work for me.
Okay.
4.
Thank you. Councillor Place.
For.
Councillor Rose.
For.
Councillor Wheeler.
For.
And Councillor Handley.
For.
Thank you. That's unanimous, Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you, Vicky. And then moving on, Councillor Mulligan again, agenda item 6 for the NNDR.
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, once again, I'm going to hand over to Richard in a minute, but I think that I think this council deserves some credit, and I think the government to a degree deserves some credit because of the support and relief businesses have received during the COVID crisis. And if there hadn't been that support, I think a lot of businesses would be in trouble. And I know that that grant scheme that we administered was very well received from our business community. So I suppose the only concern would be what will happen after that grant scheme ends, after that support ends, and whether it will have to be extended. So we're still in a period of the unknown for many local businesses until this COVID situation is resolved. So having said that, I'll pass over to Richard and he can deal with the figures. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor. So the same principles apply to business rates as to council tax, other than as Councillor Mulligan has said in paragraph 3.6 in the table that's shown there, the business rates world this year really has been very heavily skewed by all of the rate reliefs that have been provided around the retail, leisure and hospitality sectors, and that's around £10 million, which makes the sort of in-year deficit figure on the second line look quite eye-watering. But really, the majority of that's to do with the Section 31 grants that have been provided to businesses for rate relief this year. So when those are stripped out and the impact of previous figures, previous surpluses and what have you are taken account of, the actual deficit figure for next year, again, when we take account of the 3-year phasing, is relatively modest. So for the council, it's 19,000 and 48,000 across the board. Of course, half of that's split with central government. But as Councillor Mulligan has said, you know, this covers a fairly significant proportion of the base, if you like, of rate paying businesses, and it really is, you know, what happens when this relief ends. I think that's where, you know, we're all expecting more turbulence in the system, whenever that is. But you know, in terms of setting this and calculating the collection fund impact, it isn't perhaps as significant than we thought it might have been earlier in the year. Thank you.
Looking around, members. No hands at the moment. Quick one from me. Do we know how many businesses we've already lost in Craven, or is that just a figure we can't quantify? Or have we not lost any?
I don't have that figure handy, but I mean, this is anecdotal, I suppose, but because of the relief that's in place at the moment, you know, the businesses that are sort of in a marginal position, I suppose it's more straightforward to continue trading. I think it's when a lot of this support starts to move away that, you know, there'll be more difficult decisions for businesses to have to consider. But we can try to find some data that you know, gives you the answer to that question, Councillor Foster.
I just wonder if it's something we ought to be tracking going into the future, you know, that members have an idea of where this is, especially when the support does end.
Don't forget as well, it goes both ways. I mean, you know, there will undoubtedly be some business failure, but there is a net impact as well as new businesses start. But I can try to feed back with some data on that for you.
Yeah, I think it'd be of interest to members, and if there's anything we can do, really, you know, as a council through that period. There will be a period of flux. I've Councillor Myers and then Councillor Madeley but wanting to speak.
Thank you, Chairman. I think probably what we do have figures for is the increase in unemployment. Members, I'm sure David Smurthwaite will have that.
Yeah, in terms of unemployment, although it's plateaued, but it did go up by about 200% at one stage, and it seems to have leveled off now. But the worst case scenarios of all those which are a large percentage of those which are furloughed would continue as unemployed hasn't happened, partly because furlough was brought in again. But even that time when it was looking as if it wasn't, the vast majority went back to work. But it's still, for an area like this, it's up to 4%, which is we haven't seen that since I think the 80s. So it's very significant.
I think we need to somehow keep a watching brief on that. I don't know whether it's a policy committee or where, but I think it'd be a good idea if we did. Councillor Madeley.
Thank you, Chair. I am more really concerned when the grants and the furlough ends. That is the key. What and when we can help. I think it will be, hopefully it will be a staggered decline in furlough and grants, because a lot of these businesses, especially within Craven, who have which are a catering business, hotels, etc., it's not looking good for some of them at all, because it's not going to be, cut off and it's going to be really busy. I don't think it will be like that. So the pressure that the council can put on actual government to phase this in or out in a proper way would be very, very helpful indeed. And to tell us and the businesses more upfront of what they plan to do. But the way it's worked is that the council itself has done a very good job, as Councillor Mulligan says, with the grants. There's been a few queries, but they have been sorted out. I'm not so sure about the government's praise, but we will come back to that on a later date. Thank you very much.
Looking around, no other hands up. Did you move it, Patrick? I'll second it again from the chair. Save time.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I'll move the recommendations in paragraph 2.
I'm guessing we're over to the vote then, Vicky. I'm for, Vicky.
You're for. Okay, thank you, Chair. Councillor Barrett.
For.
Councillor Heseltine.
For.
Councillor Ireton.
For.
Councillor Liss.
For.
Councillor Madeley.
For.
Councillor Metcalfe.
For.
Councillor Morell.
For.
Councillor Mulligan.
For.
Councillor Myers.
For.
Councillor Noland.
For.
Councillor Place.
For.
Councillor Rose.
For.
Councillor Wheeler.
For.
And Councillor Handley.
For.
Thank you. That's unanimous, Chairman, to approve the recommendations. Thank you.
Thank you, Vicky. So moving on, agenda item 8, over to Councillor Carlis.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. There's nothing much to add to the report, Chairman. It's quite self-explanatory, isn't it? I mean, the Settle to Carlisle line are wanting to become part of the government-supported programme, which enables community involvement, and also it'll facilitate them being in line for more grants that are available. Already the Bentham line are in this partnership, and I think it makes good sense, certainly as far as the Settle to Carlisle line is concerned, that they become part of it too. So I shall move the recommendations, Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you, members. It appears to me to be a good news story. And I've got a seconder from Councillor Ireton. Councillor Noland. You haven't muted yet, Councillor.
I'll
Morley.
unmute myself. Yeah, I'll try that.
There you go.
I'm a member of the FOSL or Friends of Settled Carlisle line, so I don't guess I shouldn't vote on this at all or take any part.
We'll take that as a declaration of interest, Councillor Nolan.
Yeah, sorry, I did raise my hand early, but anyway,
Oh,
okay.
right, sorry, missed that.
I
So,
declare my interest.
done. On that note, members, I've not seen any hands, and it just does seem a positive thing. I'm happy to second it. Oh, no, Councillor Ayrton seconded it. So, do we need to vote on this, Vicky? Or does it just need a nod or two?
I think just a nod, because you're just noting the intentions and expressing support for the application. So I think that will be fine.
Councillor Heseltine, you've unmuted. Do you want to speak on this?
No, I was preparing to vote, but I jumped the gun.
Right. So are you in assent? Everybody else seems to be nodding within the room. Yeah. So on that note, we'll move on to agenda item 8. Review of operation of Ward Member Grant Scheme. Councillor David Ayrton. You're muted at the moment.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. Yeah, I've just one query that I do have on the report, Chairman, is that, well, it's a question at 4.4, risk management. And it talks about members may become more likely to receive allegations, complaints against them of misuse of public money. Have we had any? This has been running now, I think it's going into its 6th year, in the 2015, I think it was introduced as for members. Have we had any complaints received on this? I think that'll be a question to Sharon.
No, not that I'm aware of. We haven't received any complaints in terms of the administration of the scheme.
That's good then. So that you would have thought that there's very little danger of that happening then, wouldn't you, if it's administrated right? And I think we have in place for the elections, don't we, where the scheme closes prior to the election periods. Well, I'll move the recommendation, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Ayrton.
I'll second them, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Liss. Before I come to you, Sue, I'd just like to say that it does appear to work, does this? If you actually look at the distribution that's sort of like panned out in the report, that we're helping various projects and various areas and various age groups. The application form itself is never too, it doesn't seem too onerous. And if I ever get somebody who comes and says, can I have some money, and I've already spent it, it's always, you know, the scheme starts again soon. I'll look forward to seeing your application in the new year, you know, when the next funding. So I think that probably keeps some of the complaints down. But over to Councillor Metcalfe and then Councillor Rose.
Thank you, Chair.
Thanks, Chairman. Yeah, I just want to say, as a relatively new councillor, that I think it's really valuable, and it's certainly done a lot of good. Particularly around challenges to do with COVID. I think it's done a lot of good in my ward. So yeah, long may it continue. And I'm certainly pleased that there's been no complaints. So.
Thank you, Councillor Rose, and then Councillor Mulligan.
Again, echoing Councillor Metcalfe's comments, as a ward rep, it is really nice, really good to be able to actually physically support something, to actually see something that you've actually helped along the way. Because some of our work, obviously, like now being in a meeting, is not very concrete. So being able to support a specific project is really very satisfying. And it was a delight reading through all the different projects that people have been involved in, have supported at least. I hadn't realised the huge variety of projects that we have, you know, between us all being involved in. So yes, indeed, long may it continue. It's one bit of the job I really do enjoy doing. Thank you.
Councillor Mulligan. Thank you, Councillor Rose.
Thank you, Chairman. Yeah, I agree with what the previous speakers have said. I think this is a very valuable scheme, and as Councillor Rose pointed out, it's quite amazing the the list of projects that have received some funding. And of course, some of these are small scale projects, but we're providing them with some seed funding, and then they can go elsewhere and raise funds from other organizations. I would also like to say that I think it's a tribute to this council and to the fact that we've been successful in terms of running the council finances, that we're able to operate this scheme. I know there's other councils that wouldn't be able to operate schemes like this. And I think it's a value to our residents. And I think, again, I commend the council for being a well-run council whose finances are in order. And this is why we can operate these types of schemes.
I've got it seconded from anywhere. About 15 hands, so I'll pick one, Vicky.
Councillor Metcalfe put a hand up, so.
Fine.
Councillor.
But
No, it was Councillor Iton and Councillor Liss, I think.
Yeah,
all right, yeah,
that's
sorry,
right. Yeah.
Already done.
Already done.
Judging by the amount of people who actually wanted to second it, but I'm guessing we need a vote on this.
Yes, please, Chair.
I'm for Vicky, and then.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Barrett.
For.
Councillor Heseltine.
For.
Councillor Iton.
For.
Councillor Liss.
For.
Councillor Madeley.
For.
Councillor Metcalfe.
For.
Councillor Morell.
For.
Councillor Mulligan.
For.
Councillor Myers.
For.
Councillor Noland.
For.
Councillor Place.
For.
Councillor Rose.
For.
Councillor Wheeler.
For.
And Councillor Handley.
For.
Thank you. That's everybody has approved that recommendation, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you. So it's on to agenda item 9. I think I have the lead on this. It's basically, we want to sort Langcliffe Quarry out. Part of the planning is to have an up-to-date conservation management plan. We've had one on the site for a number of years, and it's basically a continuation of that with a few new add-ons. But it's basically looking after what is quite an important historic site within the district, but also allowing us to develop it out and create some jobs and job opportunities within Langcliffe Quarry. So the report's in front of you, the recommendations there. I'm happy to move it from the chair, and it's a bit over to members, really. Not seeing any hands or waving or signs or anything. Councillor Rose.
Thank you, Chair. I have to say I found the report, or the whole aspect of this, really quite enlightening. I hadn't taken on board the extent to which the quarry has so many inputs, historical, archaeological, obviously matters of conservation, an extraordinary mix of things that do need to be very carefully managed, obviously going towards the future from the point of view not just of business and opening it up more to the public, but managing the ecology of the site as well. Not an easy task as far as I can gather, but certainly one that needs to be done and needs to be done well as far as I can see. But again, just to really say thank you for such a useful and interesting report. I found it very enlightening and must be supported. Thank you.
Councillor Myers?
Yes, I think Councillor Rose is quite right, as ever. And certainly when we're talking about the Hoffman kiln, it's a building of international importance. And anything we can do to conserve the historic buildings and the ecology that is developed there, very thorough plan. One day it's going to need some very thorough funding, but that's in the future. But at least we have a plan in place. I'm very happy to second it if nobody has.
Councillor Lees.
Yeah, thank you, Chairman. Yeah, one of the beauties, I suppose, of COVID is with the stay-at-home policy, we've got an awful lot more time available to us to read reports like this. It's an excellent report, absolutely magnificent. And I think one of the best things about it is it shows quite a level of cooperation between ourselves and indeed the Yorkshire Dales National Park. This has been a long time in the coming, a long time, but the quality of the report is without question, and I look forward to its development. And like Councillor Myers, I would expect some funding that we'll need to provide in the future, but nevertheless, this has been a long time in the coming, and I welcome it. And I know Councillor Welsh does as well. I'm aware of that, and he would have been speaking to this, I'm sure, tonight had he been here. Thank you, Chairman.
Councillor Hazeltine, you're unmuted.
Waiting to vote.
All right, that's okay. Looking round, no more members. Do we need a vote on this, Vicky?
Yes, please, Chair, if that's okay with you. Thank you.
I'm for then again, please.
Okay. Councillor Barrett.
For.
Councillor Heseltine.
For.
Councillor Iton. Just need to unmute yourself, Councillor Iton. Councillor Iton, you're still muted. Right, I'll come back to Councillor Iton. Councillor Liss.
For.
Councillor Madeley.
For.
Councillor Metcalfe.
For.
Councillor Morell.
For.
Councillor Mulligan.
For.
Councillor Myers.
For.
Councillor Noland.
For.
Councillor Place.
For.
Councillor Rose.
For.
Councillor Wheeler.
For.
And Councillor Handley.
For.
Councillor Iton, we couldn't hear you. You were muted. Are you voting for the recommendations? I think he's struggling, but Chair, that was...
Try pressing your space bar, Councillor Iton.
Yes, I'm for, Vicky.
Thank you.
I'll try and remember the space bar, Chairman.
All right. Okay, that's everybody for the recommendation. Thank you, Chair. Thank you.
Thank you, Vicky. So that now moves us on to moving into exempt session, I believe, members. Agenda item 10. Are we happy to move into exempt session? I'm looking around. No. Yep, I'll move it. Councillor Myers seconded it, and
You just have to wait for